Hello and welcome to the webinar. My name is Mark Ruther, UK National Sales Manager for NEC. Within this webinar, we'll be looking at the networking options on the SV9100. Before we get into the depths of the agenda and what we're here to talk about, a little bit of confession before we actually start. This is going to be a difficult subject to get through. Usually when we're doing face-to-face training, we'll have a flip chart, we'll have a debate, discussion, and it becomes a lot easier when you've got everything around you. But here we are in April, we're in lockdown, COVID-19. It is what it is, unfortunately, and I'm hoping I'm going to do this justice. If you do have any questions, write them down. And before you go on to the next section of the academy training, please consult with an NEC representative. You know, that's what we get paid to do. You know, if you've got a networking opportunity, a hotel opportunity, a call center opportunity, CTI opportunity, you know, you're not experts in all this, you know, all at once. You're going to need some help and some guidance in order that we make sure we're managing everybody's expectations. We're not overpricing an opportunity. We're not going to be providing a solution that won't work. We are here to help. So please pick up the phone. So we're going to look at different options. We've got AspireNet, Netlink. We're going to look at multiple locations, branch offices, how we can build in redundancy and resilience into a solution, and other network options along the way. So with that said, let's get started. So the first networking protocol we're going to look at is something that we call AspireNet. Now AspireNet is used where you've got multiple different types of NEC telephone systems. Okay, a quick glance at that slide now, you'll probably think, okay, that there's three SVs there and Aspire. Yeah, you'd be quite right. But if you look again, the remote site there's got a blue chassis. That would say to me that could be an 8100. But we could have upgraded to a latest, greatest CP20. Okay, so it is important, you know, where you've got AspireNet, not to make sure that you know what processors are in what location. Okay, they're all different. You've got AspireNet. You may, you know, if we didn't have the Aspire at remote site N, we may want to change that to an SV, change all the CPUs to a CP20 and use Netlink. Yet again, you will form your own opinion on that as we get through this subject, or through just a matter of time working with us, and you'll make your own judgment. So we've got 4 sites. The company have a corporate IP network, and they want to use that network, not as well as putting data across it, but also putting voice across it, because prior to putting a network in place, when site A talks to site B, C, D, etc., they're having to make an outgoing call over the PSTN, the public network, which they're paying for it. Usually if they've got a network in place, like an IP network, they pay one fixed price to send their data across, no matter how big it is. They can also put voice across it as well. So it's a way of maximizing their investments, okay? Now, each site will need to have a router, and you can actually see the routers here. If I can find my mouse, there's a router on each site. And these routers will need to be QoS routers, quality of service routers. Now, some of you may be new to the industry and have no idea what I'm talking about here. So let me try and explain in simplest terms. When you make a voice call, you are hopefully expected, when you're talking, the person that you're talking to is listening to it as you're saying it. Okay, if you didn't have any quality and service routers on there, and somebody's transferring big files or sending emails, it's going to distort the quality of the voice call. Okay, so it could be like that, and you probably experienced that when you've been on a mobile network. Okay, so that Norman Collier effect, those people that know who Norman Collier is. But if you put quality of service in place, what we can actually do is that if there is any data going across the sites, we can slow that down in order to send the voice through, to avoid that jitter, that conversation. Okay, so a QoS router would recognize when a voice call needs to make a call from site A to B, slow the data and down and let the voice go. When you send an email, okay, you compose your email, you press send. The person that you sent it to will receive the header of that email, then the body of all your content that you put within that email, and then a footer. And once all those components are complete, we'll then put it into your email box. Okay, voice doesn't work like that. It has to be time critical. So as I'm talking, you are understanding it. If you don't have any quality of service, you are going to station like this, and obviously that is unacceptable nowadays. So we've got quality of service routers. Another way of explaining it, incidentally, is that if you're a driver, you've been down the motorway, you're in the fast lane, you look in the mirror, you see a blue flashing light. What do we all do? We move to the left in order for the police, the ambulance, the fire engines to get past. Yeah, and once they've gone past, what do? We all move over back into the fast lane. QoS router is just the same. Sees a bit of voice, moves the data aside, slows that down to let the voice through. That's a good explanation if I've ever heard one. So getting back to the AspireNet, so we can have a maximum, the systems obviously will have maximum capacity, so obviously 896 on the 9100. I think the Aspire was about 512. So providing we're working within the maximums, that's not a problem. You can have up to 50 remote sites. Why only 50? Because that's the most we've ever done. Are we confident we can do more? Absolutely, but 50 is what it is. But each site can have up to 896 extensions or 512. That is not the problem here. Providing we don't go over 50 remote sites, we're good to go. Now, what you'll need to do is license each individual system. Okay, each system, of course, will need to have a IP LE card or a VoIP card. Okay. Yeah, again, don't be overwhelmed with this. Just talk to your NEC representative. So providing we've got VoIP cards in place, then we need to apply some licenses. Now, how AspireNet works is that you will need 2 licenses to set up a speech path between one site and another. So from remote site 1 wants to call site the main site will need a AspireNet license, and so would the remote site. Okay. If the main site wanted to talk to remote site, they would need a license on each. So for instance, if your customer says at any one time, we're looking at having 3 simultaneous calls from our remote sites, okay? Each site will have 3 AspireNet licenses, and on the main site, we would have 9, okay? Simple as that, simple maths. So there are some benefits in using AspireNet. Yeah, again, we're not prohibited by the size of the actual system. Okay, yes, we're going to need some licenses, but they're not going to be massive. So yeah, again, understanding the configuration when you're doing your due diligence is very important. You can have a mix of Aspires, SV8100s, 9100s, CP10s, CP20s. It's all a mishmash, providing that they are NEC systems, Aspire, SV, we're good to go. Okay, we can have park hold, we can have busy lamp status across the estate, so I can see when my colleagues are actually on the phone and off the phone, park hold, local auto attendant, local voicemail, local breakout, which is probably not a requirement nowadays because lines and minutes are so cost effective. But you know, this is a worldwide product where, you know, some territories are not so advanced as the UK, where they want to dial into over a network to a location, then break out for a local call in that way. Yeah, again, I'll explain that a little bit more as we go through. And the corporate network has less demand on it because it's just individual sites, where Netlink is a little bit, you know, it has to be seen all the time. It's pulsing every second to making sure that connection's still there, where AspireNet works a little bit differently. So there are some restrictions that you need to be aware of. Each system will need to be programmed individually. There's no off-site hunt groups, ring groups, etc. You can use a DSS console by all means to see busy lamp status across the estate, but we don't have a operators console that does that. Okay. So moving over to Netlink. Now, if you've got digital extensions, analog extensions, ISDN2, ISDN30, SIP trunks, it doesn't matter. If you've got remote workers, it doesn't matter. You can provide a Netlink situation to provide survivability, DR, call it what you want, even if you're on one site or multiple sites. And that's quite topical at the moment, which I'll discuss down the line. And no matter how many SVs you've got all together, providing they are all the same CPU. Okay, so to have Netlink, all the sites need to either be a CP20, which is the latest and greatest, which they should be, or even if you had all of them were CP10s, yeah, we can Netlink them. But yet again, I would encourage you to upgrade the customer to the latest, greatest. So you have to have the same CPU. Vital, okay? You may go into a site that may have a blue chassis, which would represent as an 81, but the CPU could be charcoal, so it could be a 9100 CPU, but do you know if it's a CP10 or a CP20? Yet again, if you look closely enough, it will actually tell you. If the CPU's got like a blue go faster stripe on there, you know it's a CP20. Okay, moving on from that scenario. So here we are, we've got 3 sites. We can have a maximum of 50 locations. Okay, and one of the major benefits is that we're connecting up. We've got some QoS routers in place. The corporate networks there. Each of those 3 sites have got their own extension range. So primary site could be 200, secondary site could be 300, secondary site could be 400, etc, etc. The engineer will only ever program the primary site. Okay. Now the primary site will automatically come with a Netlink node license, and your Profix and CPQ will do this anyway for you. But you'll need a Netlink license for the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, all the way up to the 49th site that you potentially are going to Netlink together. The engineer will only ever program that primary site. What actually happens is that the system secondary site will take a mirror image of what's programmed in the primary site, so it can act as a redundancy, a survival mode type system if you wanted to. Now, if somebody, as an example, was to unplug the primary site, just unplug it, and the routers are still up, and the LAN's still up and working, these IP handsets on the primary site could relocate onto the secondary. Okay, so yeah, again, it's a lot less aggravation. It's a lot easier for the engineers, but I have to say the network has to be a good quality network. It has to be up all the time. Okay, because it's pulsing all the time to make sure who's on the call, who's off the call. Can I see the 3rd site? It has to be consistent. It works absolutely fine. Just yet again, as I mentioned earlier, talk to us. So you can have a maximum of 50 remote sites, but the maximum portage, i.e. extensions across those 50 sites, cannot exceed 896 extensions. So looking at it in a little bit more detail here, so we've got our 4 sites, we've got our corporate network, we've got our QoS routers in place. We can see here that the remote sites have got SV9100s in place. They all got the same processor, CP20, and you'll notice that we put some PSDN connections. Whether those are SIP, whether they're ISDN or analog, it doesn't really matter, because the reason why we put this scenario together is that if this main primary site and this network was to go down, at least we can redirect some of the calls into the individual branches. The people within the branches can make an outgoing call, and business can continue. The only disadvantage would be they're not dialing across the network to talk to their colleagues. When that network primary site comes up again, everybody's connected. So as soon as that primary site's disconnected, what happens? Remote site 1 becomes the primary. These IP handsets could log on to this site here if they wanted to, or that one could go there and that one can go to the remote site N. So 50 remote sites, a total of 896 extensions. Your primary site will have a Netlink node license anyway. Profix will look after providing you 3 Netlink node licenses, 1 for each of one of these 3 sites. All of the licenses, when you're working in Netlink, okay, reside and will come and be located into that main CPU. Now, I just clicked on there accidentally, and you've seen this little red cross came about, and you can see that the remote site now is now the primary. So, as I mentioned, it takes a mirror image of how the system's programming. All your lines can be rediverted, these handsets here can relog on, etc, etc. Okay, it's as simple as that. So what Netlink will give you is full transparency across the whole of the estate, providing it's not more than 896 extensions and 50 remote sites. The databases are mirrored across the the master to the secondary and so on and so on. It's obviously a fantastic solution for a fallover DR type situation. Six months ago, several of our partners started putting in a DR situation to a customer's locations. They've only got maybe 10, 20 extensions. Some of them had more, admittedly, a couple of hundred, and you would expect a DR situation to be deployed there. All it is another chassis with a CPU in it, with a Netlink node license, and in the event of failure, the other system would kick in. So it gives you a good DR type story. Okay, and obviously from an engineer's perspective, it's nice and easy because you're programming the one system. Don't get overwhelmed. If you're confused, write the questions down and contact us after. So multiple locations. So continuing this theme with SV9100 and Netlink, you can see there we've got remote workers in the yellow, and then in remote site 3 and remote site 1 we've just got some IP handsets. Yet again we've got QoS routers, and I've explained what those do. These handsets on remote site 1 and 3, they can be located, or their parent SV9100, if you want to call it that, can be whatever you want. It could be the primary site or it could be the secondary site. It is totally up to you. Okay, so home worker, exactly the same. Where do you want that home worker? Do you want him associated with the primary site, or do you want it associated with the remote site too? And the same with the ST500 clients as well. Okay, so Netlink has to have a good quality network. 50 sites, 896 extensions, not a problem at all. So what happens when you've got a mixed match of telephone systems? So you can actually see on the left hand side of the slide, we've got all SV9100s. Let's presume they're all SV9100 CP20s. So I can actually use Netlink technology there. So they've got full transparency. The engineers only ever program one system. We've got some PSDN on the other sites. So if this network was to go down, they can continue to do business. Okay. So we've talked about Netlink. That's that. On the other side, we've got a different situation where we've got an Aspire and an old AC100. Not a problem. We would AspireNet them two together. Okay, making sure that if you want one speech path, then you'd have a license on the SV here and the Aspire there. If you wanted 2 speech paths, you'd need 4 licenses, so on and so forth. Then we'd link that network to the existing one using AspireNet, and each of the sites would be able to talk to one another. Of course, those people in a network situation, they have the luxury of having all the functionality, the visibility aspect that goes along with Netlink. With the AspireNet, they can have a bit of BLF, as we well know. They can dial desk to desk. It works. It absolutely works. So you can mix and match the technologies. I think it's fair to say that where you do get those mix and match of telephone systems, because network is becoming more cost effective, and SIP carriers obviously can put networks in place very quickly and very cost effective, you may want to use SIP trunk networking mode. Okay, what this will give you is desk to desk dialing. Okay, makes the calls from other trunks using what we call ARS. So we can see here we've got a 2100, and let's say that's in Birmingham. The 9100 is in Nottingham, and we want to make a call, let's say, to Sheffield. So we could obviously, if we wanted to, dial through the network into here and then dial out to Sheffield via that route. To be honest with you, the likelihood of doing that is very remote, because network is very cheap nowadays, or PSTN calls are very cheap. SIP. Okay, so you can have 1,000 remote sites. Reduce the call cost by making local calls across that IP network as opposed to the PSTN. So some key takeaways here that I want to go through. Aspire, you're going to use Aspire if you've got different NEC telephone systems, 81, 91 and Aspires. Okay, hence why it's called AspireNet. If they are different processors, so you could have, all 9100s, but you could have CP10s and CP20s, so you've got to use AspireNet. Okay, so it's an entry-level networking solution that has a lot, functionality. Will give you BLF, provides good level of feature transparency. Netlink enables multiple locations to operate as a single system. Okay, providing that the network is good quality. Yeah, again, if you're a little bit concerned, talk to your NEC representative or your engineering managers as well. Engineers will only program the one system. It's very cost effective, and it provides obviously centralized administration, which is fantastic. Not only for the engineers, incidentally, but they may have an IT team that want to control the whole of this state, whether that's logging, changing incoming call ringing, CLI direction, hunt group, pickup groups, all that sort of nice thing. The IT guys can actually control the whole of the estate. Yeah. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much for your time. I am conscious that it's quite a difficult subject without a flipboard and pen and paper and some debate. But hopefully you've got the basics to get you by. As I've mentioned several times, concerned, give us a call, we'll help you. That's what we get paid to do. So that's all from me. My name's Mark Ruther. Thank you for your time, and I'm sure we'll speak again. Take care, have a great day. Bye-bye.